Men who have been sexually assaulted by women. What's your story? She was my friend's mom. There was about 5 of us neighborhood boys who'd go swimming at her son's house. Afterwards she'd make us dry off and walk around in a circle, and she'd hold our testicles and peanuts as we walked past. We were about 4, 5, 6 years old at the time. Was watching the sexual assault scene in The Butterfly Effect when it triggered a flashback. I was 29. I've noticed a lot of people mentioning poor memory as a coping mechanism. I have the worst short-term memory. I've spoken to doctors about medication because it affects my work life and personal life. If I meet you at a party, I still might not remember your name after being told 10 times. My mom's friend used to roughly jerk me off whenever I was left in her care. I never told my parents because she convinced me the tolerance would make me strong and desirable to girls in the future, and made it a secret between us. Years back, my babysitter took me to the bathroom. As I remember, she sat on the toilet and used my hand to rub herself. I was 5-ish at the time. She was a teenage family friend. It only happened once. Never became clear what happened till years later. As a child, my brother and sister both sexually molested and raped me. I was about 6 when my brother started, and about 9 or 10 when my sister started. She waited until we had a day off from school, and my parents were at work. She brought me into my parents' room and had me do a lot of things. At one point, she took out a recorder and taped it. Thankfully, that recording has since disappeared. I'm 39 years old now. I am no contact with either of my siblings. 13-year-old stepsister coming into her own. She was sexually abused by father figures earlier in her life. Used me as a tester. I was 6-yo. My babysitter forced me to watch Peen and asked if my peanuts was hard. I didn't do anything about it. Friend's mother. She was 50-something. We were teenagers. She assaulted at least 4 of us. This was the cool house where you could drink, hang out, etc. For my part, she once pointed a rifle, that I assumed was loaded, at me and another kid and told us to wash her dishes. Partway through, she reached into my pants and started stroking me. Her husband actually walked into the room during this, and when I looked at him he said, "Don't look at me. She's got the gun." I know other friends got a lot worse than I did. She also assaulted the girl who would later be my first adult partner with a vibrator. Her daughter's boyfriend lived with them for a year, and I'm pretty sure he got the worst of it. When I was in my early 20s, she died of a heart attack, and that guy brought a 6-pack to my house to tell me. Only time I've toasted to someone's death. When I was 5, my babysitter at the time made me trip down and lay on top of her naked body. She was maybe 14 at the time. I've had a few seriously unwell ex-partners. One used to just abuse the frick out of me for hours till I gave in. There were regular sexual assaults which I diaried. When I went to the police, they had me back 13 times to get through the statement. I had 140 pages of text message evidence and 2 phones I gave them to collect the evidence from. I've spoken with this woman since. Before her interview, the police assured her she wouldn't be charged, it's just a formality. 100% I would have done years in prison if I did all of that to her. When I was a private in the army, a female friend in my unit became somewhat obsessive over me to the point of being a stalker after I rejected her advances. We had faulty locks on our barracks doors that could be opened with a pair of pliers. She would casually break into my room and wait for me, so we could talk about us. She would normally leave if I told her to, so I didn't think much of it. One night I came home drunk, passed out, and woke up in the middle of the night to her giving me a blowjob. I didn't even know how she got in my room. When I realized what was happening, she attempted to ride me. I pushed her off and told her to leave. My roommate, friends, NCOs, etc. Everyone just thought it was hilarious. It didn't really bother me, but I definitely look back and see that it was wrong. Didn't feel right sending a girl home late at night, so I let her stay with me in my hotel room. Wasn't planning on her staying that night and didn't really consider having sex with her. Next morning I thought I was dreaming of sex, then started wondering why it was feeling good. Then I fully woke up just as I finished internally without a condom. I got tested and she was on her period, so unlikely to get pregnant. I thought I dodged some bullets and it was just unexpected Shreks or something until I was with a new partner and we were swapping odd Shreksual encounters or something and I brought that up and she was like, you were raped, which was odd since until that moment I didn't seriously think of it that way. I got roofied by my ex and she posted the Shreks tape to Pornhub. I was underage at the time. In middle school, I was forced to move to the front of the bus after a few months. I was told I was in trouble, but she never told me what I did. I asked her once a week, over a few weeks, and she refused to tell me. Then one day, I left gym still dressed in my gym clothes and made it to the bus first. I asked again, and she said because of this and rubbed me all over, including my crotch. I honestly didn't feel violated. I was more confused, because I thought she said I was doing that to someone else. About a year later, it clicked that she just wanted to molest me, so I was vocal about it. I was then pulled into an office and threatened by the principal to stop making stuff up, or I would be punished. I honestly feel more violated that they forced me to hide what happened. Was at a party. Drunk younger girl kept cornering me and grabbing me. Was awful, but I'm a big guy and she was tiny and I felt terrible, because I couldn't push her away. It felt terrible and everyone was laughing at me. Luckily another girl at the party recognized what was happening and saved me. Not as invasive as others here. Throughout school from elementary through high school, girls would play a prank on boys by stealing as much of their clothes as they could. They would literally gang up on one boy, hold him down and try to trip him to his boxers running in all directions. You try to fight back, you're in trouble. Because boys don't hit girls. Report them to the office? Man up, they're just playing. It wasn't traumatizing, but the double standard was infuriating. Some guys just started swinging and damn the consequences. One time a hall monitor tried to take me to the office after I ran into the girls' bathroom for my pants. I just flipped him off and went running after my shirt. When I was a freshman in college, a girl who was friends with my roommate's girlfriend put a half Xanax bar in my drink. I woke up the next morning to her naked in my bed with no recollection of the past 12 hours. I like to think my dong wouldn't have been able to work in that state, but she definitely gave it her best effort. She majored in theology and is now a professor at a Catholic university. My friends gave me shit for the rest of the year. I brushed it off, but to this day I feel nervous around women. I wish I could have done something back then. It still haunts me. My older cousin on my mom's side simulated Shreks with me when we're alone, touched my genitals often, kissed me, and tried to have full intercourse several times. This happened between 13 years old. I was always scared and nervous when I was alone with her. She made me think it was normal though. I still have problems being romantically intimate with anyone and have never been able to trust someone in that way. I have been in therapy consistently for about 3 years now and have finally been able to unpack and heal from this. Although I originally came to therapy for other things, this part of my life is something that comes up a lot. Update. I want to thank everyone for their support, comments and responses, and for believing and validating my past. This is a difficult part of my life to talk about and I still carry shame from it. I am alone in real life, because no one would ever believe me. Someday I will tell my family about it though, with the risk of being ostracized and alienated and called a liar. We both stayed at a mutual friend's house and were both drunk. She tried to kiss me unprompted when I was just chilling wasted in a chair with my eyes closed. Then she got on top of me and wouldn't get off when I told her to, so I had to throw her off. Party at my place. I was seeing a girl at that time, so I had no intention of anything with this girl. We were both drunk and decided to lay in my bed and chat with clothes on. I must have passed out, because sometime later I wake up to her mounted on me, and I was just like, oh shoot no, then I climax while pushing her off me. I felt completely humiliated and I know no one would have believed it. I had an abusive ex-girlfriend who would get blackout drunk and threaten to kill herself if I didn't have Shreks with her. It was quite common for her to be on top and punch slap me for having my eyes closed waiting for it to be over, trying to belittle me for not being a man. She was abused as a child and both her parents are drug addicts, so I assume it was some kind of power thing. It happened 5 or 6 times before I properly resisted and threw her off of me onto the floor. She left to some other guy's house and cried domestic abuse. She had keys to my apartment and they were in the hallway banging on my door. held closed by the chain, yelling for all to hear about the piece of shit I was. I was too scared to call the cops. The next morning she came back apologetic, confessing to have slept with all three of these guys the next morning. I played along long enough for her to go to the bathroom. I took my keys out of her purse, suggested we go for breakfast, and left through the kitchen door. I've got a great Shrek's life with a loving partner, but I still cry when I sing the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald or reminisce of my time in Thunder Bay. She was my babysitter and shamed me into thinking if I told anyone I'd get into trouble. This went on for a couple summers. In the late 90s I had a girl try to rape me. When I tried to report it, the police actually laughed at me and didn't file a report. It's hard for men, because if men fight back and the girl gets injured in any way, the police will never believe the man. He will probably go to jail for assault. Years ago I went to a girl I was previously housed, got trashed, passed out, woke up to her hitting me without protection. When I freaked out she told me, "Well, you were passed out," and I was honey, like it was fine to do that. 4 years later people were defending her. I still see her to this day and I'm always reminded of the time she raped me. But no one cares or thinks it's rape. Such a double standard for men. Babysitter in the late 90s. She was mid-20s. I was around 8, 9 years old. Made all the kids always play hide and seek, and she would make me count with her and force me to finger her and say, "Just suck on my nipple like you were drinking milk from your mom." This happened for about 2 months, 2-3 times a week. I blame her for taking something away from me that I will never get a chose for. This is the first time I have ever talked about this. I have realized I think that the reason I have an extremely high Shrek's drive and weird fetish is not like poop stuff. I have her to blame for this. It will live for me the rest of my life. This is the first time I have ever told anyone or put this anywhere.